Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today I bring you guys the somewhat new and improved Avenger tank. The two-handed Templar tank that I released during Somerset I have brought back for this update. And it's got one change, and we'll go over that. But I do want to explain that the Templar tanks did have a nerf this update, so I had to do a lot of adjusting to make this work to my advantage. So we'll get to that when we get in here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the build. Here we are on the stats, 64 into stamina, like always, because we need a high stamina pool to make this build really work. You can see we do have a 2300 weapon damage. Our recoveries don't look too well, but that's okay. Wait until we pop a pot and you'll see why. We do have a 45% weapon critical, which is really good this update. We really need that higher weapon critical to make our heals and our other effects work better on us. We do look like we have a low resistance, but because of the change to the Templar, which I'll go ahead and show you with this. So if you watch, wrong button, but if you watch now, and I go in here, our resistances go to 27, 25. We are running the Blood Spawn set, so if you add another 6k to that, we're going to be in a good place for tanking, which makes it really good, resistance-wise. We are still shield stacking to mitigate most of the damage. Moving on down here, we are using the Thief Mundus Stone this time for the higher crit chance, instead of using the Lady for the higher resistances, because we don't want to over-resist, get too much in our resistances. So next up, we are using Tri-Stat Food, which is necessary for this, guys, really necessary. And we also have Major Savagery because we do have Expert Hunter on our bar, on both bars, to give us the extra crit chance. We really need that high crit chance, trust me on this. Alright, so moving on to the gear. Starting with our main set here. Our main set we're using is Blood Spawn for the monster set, and this gives us stam recovery, and then the two pieces. When you take damage, you have a 6% chance to generate 14 ultimate, and increase your physical and spell resistance by 6,450 for 6 seconds, and it can happen every 6 seconds. It's up quite a bit, I'm not going to lie. Even with shields, it can still proc the monster set, so that's kind of nice. So your resistances stay pretty high most of the time. I'm not going to say 100%, but most of the time. So it really helps out. We are using tri-stats on the big pieces, and they are infused, with the smaller pieces being reinforced or nerd homed. So looking at the other set we are using Night Mother's Gaze, and the reason we use Night Mother's Gaze is so that we can apply Major Fracture. Now, because of how this build works, Major Fracture is up pretty much 100%. So it's kind of nice. You have to rely on the healer though to apply Major Breach, which isn't too bad. Most healers run that anyways, unless you're playing a stam healer. So it's a good setup. And like I said, on the smaller pieces, you want to go Nirnhone on the belt and the gloves, because this will give you the greater amount of resistances from those. And with the boots and the shoulders, go reinforced, everything else infused. You can go reinforced here if you want, but honestly, it's not going to make a huge difference. It's not going to make a big enough difference to make it work better. It's just not. Moving on to the jewelry, we are running 2 weapon damage on the Plague Doctors, which is our other 5-piece set. And Plague Doctors is going to be really good for tanks this update, because tanks are going to have to build for more health due to the loss of the health increase from Warhorn on minor toughness, unless you have a Warden in your group. So going with something on Plague Doctors really helps. Toughness will be something you might want to think about having a Templar healer with you, or a Warden healer instead of a Templar healer on this build. But 2 weapon damage and then 1 magic recovery like always, so we can get that 893. But we will improve upon this. Trust me on this on this update, things are going to change. On to the weapons. We are using a Plague Doctor's, or a Night Mother's Gaze sword. Plague Doctors we're using on the belt and gloves, or boots and gloves. These are easy to get. Unless you want to go with the belt, and then you can go light and medium on the helm. The helm is medium, by the way, with the belt being light, because that's going to give you the better resistances. The boots and gloves, though, Plague Doctors, and then 5 piece down here, and then the weapons, Night Mothers. So on the weapons, we are using a Night Mother's Greatsword and a Night Mother's Bow. The Greatsword has Crusher on it, the bow has Weakening, and the nice thing about this update, and I'll show you guys this, so you can see for yourselves, if I put down Endless Hail on this guy, you'll see it'll proc, as soon as it hits, it'll proc Weakening, and if I swap bars, and I hit him, Crusher is applied, and then Weakening stays applied. So this update, you can keep Weakening constantly applied, along with your Crusher, which is really good. Really plays well with this. Because we don't have Minor Maim, so Weakening will play really well with this setup. So that's how you get your Minor Maim, is through Weakening. It's about the equivalent of putting Minor Maim on him. If you had Minor Maim and Weakening, it's a little better. Alright. So that was the gear, guys, and for the food, Tri-Stat food is going to be your best option. Longfin pasty and melon sauce is pretty cheap on the live servers, so a stack of 100 is usually like 2,000 or 3,000. Sometimes it's a little bit more. It depends on demand. And then Tri-Stat pots are going to be what you're going to want to use for this. Now, the reason for Tri-Stat pots is when you use a Tri-Stat pot with this, got to make sure I got it set up. When you use a Tri-Stat pot, you'll see our recovery goes to 1,050 on magic, and then 996 on stamina, which is better than where it's ever been. So that's where we're kind of a good place to have both of these. But when we get to our skills, you'll see why that 1,050 plays well with this. So moving on. Now you won't want to pop a pot in the beginning of the fight. When you need resources, pop a pot. Get your resources built up, and that way you get that recovery going. Otherwise, you really don't need this. Moving on to the skills now. Starting with what passives to get. Make sure you just get all your class passives. It's really important to get those class passives. Even if you're not using skills from those bars, get the class passives. They're going to help out. Now, because of the change to Spear Wall, we do lose 15% from blocking melee attacks. And with Blazing Shield having a 6-second uptime, and with Shield Strength being stronger, you're not going to get this 8% minor protection anymore because of it. But that's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't stress it, guys. I've got a fix. So, moving through this, you can see I got all the passives here. For weapons, make sure you get all the two-handed passives and the bow passives. On the armor, light armor, get the top 3. Medium armor, get the top 2 and the bottom 1. Especially this bottom one, you're going to want that increased cost of dodge roll, or the reduced cost of dodge roll. Heavy armor, all the passives, and then on to the world skills. They gave us Werewolf again for testing. I don't know why. But we do want to... these two here, Soul Summons and Soul Lock, really help. Moving on to the Fighters Guild. Get all the Fighters Guild passives. Because you do have Expert Hunter and Dawnbreaker on the front bar, you will get greater weapon damage because of the Slayer and the... or because of Slayer, it's going to give you 6% extra weapon damage on the front bar, which you need. And then on the back bar, you're only going to get 3%, which is fine. You don't need much more than that. Mage's Guild, you just need Persuasive Wills. Sigic Order, get all of them. And remember, this Sigic Order skill that's here, Crushing Weapon, you're not going to be using a lot. You're only going to be using this in trash fights, or if you have the ability to maintain it in a boss encounter. Mostly it's better for use in overland play to help you get through quests faster. Undaunted, get both Undaunted passives and get Inner Beast, the ranged stamina taunt. Not the magic taunt, the ranged stamina taunt. Alright, moving on. Alliance War, Assault, no passives, Support, no passives, and then on to Racial. Get all your racial passives. This is a Wood Elf. Wood Elf does not work best for this. This is just what I play personally. You can use pretty much any race for this. You're just going to want to get around that 28k stamina pool to make it work the best. So, moving on to crafting. Alchemy, medicinal use, and provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. Now, going over the skills. Like I said, not much has changed on this. There's only one skill that changed, but it's for the better. So, starting with the first skill on the bar, we do have Crushing Weapon. If you wanted to, if you feel you have the need to, you can go with the Psijic Order ability, Meditate, and go with the Morph for this of Deep Thoughts. Deep Thoughts is a really good one because it gives you a lot of resources back, but you have to maintain this, and really without a shield and not high resistances, it's not going to be very effective with this. So, just saying. Alright, so starting with the first skill, like I said, Crushing Weapon, really good damage ability, and it heals you, which is nice. So it's kind of a good trade-off with this build, because if you have your shields up, you can use Crushing Weapon, get some health back, and it's 27% of the damage you deal, you get back in health. So it's not going to be high, but it's going to be something that can help you reinforce your health return. Next ability on our bar is Brawler. Now, Brawler is really good. It's a really good ability. It hits multiple targets. It has a 7-meter radius, like blade attack in front of you. It's kind of a cone. Any enemies hit take a bleed, which is nice, and the damage it does. And then on top of that, for each enemy hit, you increase the shield strength that this gives you by 100%. The shield is only 2,265 for one enemy, plus 100%. With 2 enemies, it's 200% more, and it goes up. It goes up 100% per. So whatever that is, at 2,265, which comes out to 2,207, I think it is, extra in shield strength. You get the same amount in shield strength, so it's like 4k per monster, but the more enemies you hit, the stronger it gets. So it's really good in trash fights. It keeps you alive real easy. On boss fights, it helps. So next ability we have on our bar is Blazing Shield. Now, a lot of people are upset with Blazing Shield this update because of the nerf, but if you look, the shield strength is 34% because of Bastion, and then we get 4% for each enemy near us. But when it explodes, which it does at the end, it deals 37% of the incoming damage absorbed. Now, the reason mine's 37% is how I have my CP set up, and we'll get to that when we get there. But the CP does help for this, so. Next up, we have Rally. Now, a lot of people say Rally is more of a PvP skill, but I find it to be a better PvE skill for this build. One, it's going to give us Major Brutality, which is going to increase our weapon damage, which also increases our shield strength for this. It's going to give us a really good heal over time, and then when you activate, or when you let it run out, it heals you for 1,366 health when Rally expires, but the final heal heals you for 564% more, depending on the length the Rally runs. So if you pop Rally and let it run its course, it's going to heal you for a lot when it ends. But if you need a quick burst heal, pop Rally again, it will give you a good chunk of health. And I will show that too. Next up, we have Evil Hunter. Like I said, this is here for the crit only. Now, if you do want to play this build in PvP, it does work. And you don't have to do anything to it, because you have so much resistance already, and the fact that you have all these damage shields, it gives you really good survivability. Not a good damage output, but good survivability. And you can kill enemies in PvP, don't get me wrong. Next one is Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is here for the 5% weapon damage. If you can use this in trash, in dungeons, and in trials, it helps a lot. Because it adds to the group's total DPS, which is nice. And then when you're in a dungeon and you're tanking, you're not going to be using this. Like on a boss, you're not going to be using this that often. You will be using what's on the back bar. So moving on to the back bar, we do have a ranged taunt here, Inner Beast. This is a taunt. So you got to have the enemy targeted to get this to taunt on them. And it doesn't help if you're fighting a boss that has a lot of adds, because you have to be right up on the boss to get the taunt to hit them directly. But because a lot of times adds get in the way. So try to stay right on the boss most of the time with this, so you can keep that taunt on them. It's the only difficult part about taunting with this. It does do good damage, and it can proc a passive thing that allows somebody to synergize with it that does damage, which is really good. Next, we have Endless Hail, and I showed you guys why we have this here. This is to make our weakening enchant stay active, so we get that basic minor maim activity going on. It reduces the damage we take. So this is where some of our survivability is coming from, is weakening. Next on our bar is Resolving Vigor. This is here mainly for like group support. You can swap this out for the Fighters Guild. And this is only if you feel you need it, but Silver Leash, it does cost stamina though, and it can kill you on depending on how much you need to use it. So it can suck your stamina dry pretty quick. But luckily enough, this build has really good resource maintaining. It's self-sustaining because you're doing a lot of light and heavy attacks because you don't have to block. You've got shields that mitigate damage. And now that shields are affected by resistances, if you have 33k resistance, which you will have quite a bit because of the blood spawn and your buff, you will be at 33k. So you're going to get 50% damage mitigation on your shields from the damage your shields take, which is going to be really good. Next, this is the next ability we changed. Now, I changed this because either morph does the same thing. They both offer the same resistances, the same 50% while you're standing in the circle, and they either offer Magicka Return or Stamina Return. I chose Magicka Return. Now, the reason I chose this one for the Magicka Return is because we go through a decent chunk of Magicka maintaining our Blazing Shield. This allows us to sustain our Blazing Shield a lot more effectively, and I'll be showing you guys this when I take this to test, or show you guys how effective this build can be. Now, because we lost so much mitigation with the Templar, we had to adjust for that, and that's where a lot of that, like, needing the weakening enchant on the back bar came into play. And where the healing effect of our character isn't so important as it once was. It's more about self-preservation. So you want to have really good mitigation, and this hopefully will do that. Nord would be a lot better for this, to be honest. Moving on, we have Evil Hunter again, and then the final skill on our bar is Aggressive Warhorn. This is what a lot of people like to have on their bar for PvE. I would suggest if you're going to play this build in PvP, use the other Warhorn, the one that buffs everyone's resistances. So this way your shields become a little bit more stronger, and it helps other people that have shields in PvP. Do not use this in Battlegrounds. Gonna warn you now, it's not built for Battlegrounds. There is a way to build it for Battlegrounds, but it takes a little bit more, and you have to adjust a lot of stuff. So, but yeah, this is really good. If you're gonna play this in Battlegrounds, get the there is a set that gives you minor maim and an AoE. Get that set on this for where Plague Doctors is, and you'll have a great build for PvP. Because applying minor maim to your enemies in PvP is really helpful, especially in Battlegrounds. Not gonna lie, you'd be surprised. People get mad because they're not dealing any damage. All right, so that's the skills. Now let's go ahead and move on to CP. Starting with the red tree, we have 81 into Ironclad this time because of how CP's changed and how much we have. We can actually do this now. So we have a 24% incoming, reduced incoming direct damage, which is really good. We have 56 into Hardy, which gives us reduced damage taken from physical, poison, and disease. We have 56 in Elemental Defender, same thing, 12% on Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage. With this build, because of how much we lost, you're going to want to keep this 56 here. And then 34 into Thick Skin. This gives us a 14% reduced damage from damage over time effects. It's not 20%, but it's better. It's better than what it was last update. Moving on over here, you guys are going to notice I took everything out of Quick Recovery. 5%, if you're an Argonian, that 5% makes a difference with 19 points here. But since I'm not, I put 40 into Bastion and then 3 into Heavy Armor Focus to give me a little bit more physical resist, and I put a little bit more into Thick Skin. And, of course, I took this up to 81. This really does help keep our survivability up. Not as much as I'd like, but it helps. Moving on to the green tree, we have 56 into Warlord. This reduces our break free cost by 20%. We need that. We have 21 into bashing focus. We do bash, but we're not bashing all the time. Just when we see an enemy that's getting ready to do an ability that we can set them off balance with, that's where bashing focus comes into play. Having that reduced cost saves us stamina. Moving on to the middle tree. This is kind of another area where things might have changed a little. We went 43 Mooncalf, 43 Arcanist, and 43 into Tenacity. I noticed that when I put 76 into Tenacity, like the return was only a few hundred points more. So having just 10% here is fine. 43 into here and here allow us to get greater recovery from our pots. So that's why we have it. Moving on. We have 40 into Shadow Ward. Because we don't block that much with this build, we don't need that much block cost reduction, so 16% is good, 40 points. 23 into Tumbling. We have a 14% reduced cost because of the one medium armor piece we're wearing. And then I put 1 point into Falcon because I had no place else to put it. And in PvP, you're not going to be using the range taunt. You're going to want to use Lethal Arrow for the Major Defile, even though they nerfed the duration of it. Moving on to the blue. We have 40 into Bless. This increases our healing done by 9%. It would be better if we had a little bit more to put in there, but the way I've got this set up, I could do this. Is we only need 3 points. So make this 43. That way you get the 10% healing done, because you do need that 10% healing done. We have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases our light and heavy attack damage by 10%. We have 56 into Master at Arms, increasing our direct damage done by 20%. This also unlocks Retaliation and Butcher. We do not, or Retaliation and Reposit. We do not get Butcher now because we don't have the 23 points into Shattering Blows. Moving on, we have 56 into Mighty. I did this because it helps a lot. And then 56 into Precise Strikes. This will help keep our crit heals high from our stamina side. We do have 40 into Thaumaturge, and this is mainly to affect our bleed on the two-handed. And then we have 3 into Piercing to give us a little bit more penetration against the enemies. And that is our CP. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this to Veteran real quick, but I do want to show you guys this so you can see for yourselves. When you go into combat, the first thing you're going to want to do is drop your circle, taunt, and then Endless Hail on the boss. Do that if you want, but you're mainly going to be keeping your damage shields up as much as you can. And as you can see right now, I have a 21k shield with all my shields activated. But if I lose one, I just want to make sure I keep my shields going. And as I'm standing in my circle, like I said, because of the recovery from it, and our base recovery, we can actually keep up our shield a lot better now because we're getting that stamina return, or that magicka return. So the only problem with this build is trying to find a good time to keep everything up. So, but if you let Rally go down, and I'm going to let it go down to about 15 real quick, and then I'll pop it. So I do want to keep my circle up though. So once Rally gets down a little bit more, we'll go ahead and pop it, and you guys will see for yourselves how much Rally can heal for. So here we go. Rally just healed for 17k, which is really good. So you get a really good burst heal out of it, and you've got tick healing going on, and you've got your healer healing you. So if you get hit by a major hit, that your shields absorb most of it, and you might block it, and that helps you mitigate more damage. Your shields are gonna absorb roughly, with the new change and the 50%, if you have all full resistances, you're gonna absorb most of it on that shield, on your shields, and then it's gonna come through. Then you're gonna block. That's gonna be 10% of the incoming damage with the 50% mitigation still possibly, and then on top of that, the damage reduction you have. So it plays out pretty well. But that's the build in general. That's how it works. Now remember, if you're playing this in a trial, this is an off-tank build. This is not a main tank for trials. The only time you're going to main tank this is when you get to axes. You will main tank the boss while somebody else with a sword and shield tanks the axes. And then on the one that does the rapid fire hits, you're basically going to want to keep your shields up as much as possible on that fight. So you don't want to main tank that boss either. You want to stay pretty much at range. You don't want to use your range taunt too much. So usually what I like to do is that when it comes to encounters like that, I will keep my taunt, but I just won't use it. So now, how does this build fare in a real trial situation? Let's go find out. Let's go test this thing out in our favorite place, Mauve Lorcage. Because this has a good mix of stamina and magicka damage being done to you right in the beginning. And I can tell you this, Hellraw Citadel, I can solo almost, like up to the first boss. I can solo to the first boss. I can't solo the first boss. This thing's got insane survivability. Even with the nerfs, like, I had to compensate for things, and I did my best with the way I've got it set up. But because I can proc my shields a little bit more often, my blazing shield, it really helps. Now, if you learn to play this build, you'll find that resource management on it is really easy because you're heavy attacking a lot. So, alright, so I'm going to let these enemies come in, pop resistances, get vigor going right out the door, and I need to get my Endless Hail up going too, so, because if I have this going, I can mitigate damage like it's going out of style. And this is on veteran mode, guys. Watch how much my shields can absorb. Because of so many enemies, I mean, I get 20k in shields, no problem, between the two of them. And then if I block, like, I can keep the Sigil Order shield forever, pretty much. So this is how you're going to get more mitigation out of this build, is keeping that minor, weakening enchant on the enemies. And here we go. We took some damage. I'm going to use Rally. And you'll see, like, just with shields and Rally, I can keep myself kind of topped off. But if I need extra health, I can do that. I can just pop Crushing Weapon and get some health. So mitigation-wise, like, I'm not using my taunt like I normally would, so mitigation-wise, this build works really good at mitigating damage, which is fantastic. You're gonna, you know, it's good to have. And the more enemies you kill, as you can see, I can maintain this. And because we're doing so much heavy attacks, we don't need minor heroism to get ultimate, because we're doing heavy attacks. We get 2 ultimate per heavy attack with this, or is it 3? I forget. Okay, we get 2 ultimate per heavy attack, so it's kind of nice, and it helps us generate ultimate faster. And if I need Warhorn, I get it, and then it also helps me with my sustain and stuff because I get a higher resource pool, and it helps me with my stamina, keeping my stamina up, and my magicka. So it's kind of nice to have that, because then I can pop damage shields more often and things like that. I'm just gonna go ahead and kill this one. And the other nice thing is Rally and Brawler don't require you to have, it's magicka, so you don't have to worry so much about the spellcasters in here muting your attacks, because Rally can still be cast. This can't be cast because that's a magicka shield. But that's, or a magicka resistance buff, but that's fine. If you can get the buff off, you can move out of it. And you will still have the 27k resistances. Or you have, what is it? 25k resist while you're outside of it. So it's still pretty good. You just want to keep it up as much as possible while you're inside of the circle. But like I said, even with your shields up, you can still proc your blood spawn. So, and dodge rolling in this build is pretty cheap. But yeah, that is the Avenger, guys. That's how it works. It's actually one that I really, really like. It's the main one I play on live right now, and will continue to play even after this update. I'm going to continue playing this build. So, hope you guys like it. If you do, let me know. So yeah, but that's the Avenger tank, guys, for Murkmire. I know it's not as cool as it once was, but I really like it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not happy still with some of the nerfs they made, but with adjustments, they work. So, I mean, every update you have to adjust. And this one, we just had to adjust a little bit more. So yeah, if you like this one, hit the like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me or other videos by me, please hit that subscribe button. Other than that, thanks for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.